Reshaping the tax system is a focal point in the 2020 Democratic primary. But so far, there is a split on how to approach the issue. Senators Warren and Booker have proposed two very different paths. Here they are in last week's debate.
Regardless of party affiliation, people understand across this country our government is working better and better for the billionaires, for the rich, for the well-connected, and worse for everyone else. We come together when we acknowledge that.
But here's the challenge. We as Democrats need to fight for a just taxation system. But as I travel around the country, we Democrats also have to talk about how to grow wealth as well.
Everyone on that stage agreed the system is certainly not working for everyone. They've just got different ideas on how to fix it. So let's talk about that. Joining me now, Megan McArdle, a columnist at the Washington Post, and Jared Bernstein, who I haven't seen in quite a while. Welcome back, a senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Megan, you wrote about the choices Democrats now face. You wrote this, quote, between an economic moderate who thinks that growing the size of the economic pie has to be an important part of the Democratic agenda, talking Cory Booker, and a full-blown progressive who wants to carve it up differently, Elizabeth Warren. What do you make of these two very different policies presented by the candidates?
Look, I think that for Elizabeth Warren, the main focus is her idea is that the rich, particularly the mega rich, right, the billionaires, the people who have, hundreds of millions of dollars, that those people have taken too much, and that the fundamental economic problem that America has is that those people are hoarding more and more of the growth. For Cory Booker,
I would say
right,
most people agree with that sentiment, wouldn't you say?
Well, I think, the question is, look, for Cory Booker, what he's saying is if I go into Newark, like taking money from a billionaire is not going to fix the problems Newark has. There's something that we need to do about growing businesses, making it an easier environment for entrepreneurship. That's pretty much absent from what Elizabeth Warren is saying. Now, you can try to sort of square that circle by saying the reason that small businesses can't grow in Newark is that billionaires have too much money. But in fact, billionaires take that money and recycle it back into angel investors and so forth. What's happening in Newark, whatever is going on there, whatever is going on in the places in rural America that aren't growing, it isn't because billionaires have too much. It is because something has broken about the mechanism that is creating prosperity and opportunity there. And taking the money from billionaires isn't going to fix that problem unless you can somehow figure out a way to funnel that money back into creating economic growth. And that, again, is really not on Elizabeth Warren's agenda. What she's talking about is things that, whether or not you think they're good policies, in terms of making people more comfortable with their health care, making people more comfortable with their child care, it isn't about sort of creating those new businesses, creating the economic framework for opportunity and success within places that are currently struggling.
Jared, you wrote an article back in January in favor of Senator Warren's plan to tax the ultra-wealthy. Why?
Well, I actually agree with something Megan said, which is something is broken. The problem is the thing that's broken is the ability of middle-class people to benefit from a growing economy. And a symptom of that brokenness is the accumulation of so much wealth by billionaires. There's three really solid reasons why we absolutely need to start taxing wealth. One is because the concentration of wealth is so extreme now that it's distorting economic growth, it's distorting our politics, and it's really blocking opportunity for lots of low and middle income people. The second reason why we have to do so is because, and this is really something that I give Senator Warren and Senator Sanders a lot of credit for, the extent to which wealth goes untaxed in this country is massively underappreciated. Essentially, if you're someone that Megan was talking about, that person with $100 million or $1 billion, taxation for you is essentially voluntary. You only pay taxes on your wealth when you, quote, realize those gains, meaning when you sell that. And even there's tons of loopholes. So voluntary taxation for wealth, whereas paycheck earners have to pay taxes every couple of weeks through withholding and annually through their income tax. And then finally, the third point is that we clearly need revenues. And here I disagree with Megan. It's not that taxing billionaires leads automatically to growth. It's what you do with it. So when Warren's talking about making college education more affordable, child care for people who want to work, she's talking about using those revenues, health care. She's talking about using those revenues to not just improve the living standards of people who've been left behind, but give them an opportunity to participate in the economy.
Jared, do you believe, though, that her plan can change the system, because until now, these mega billionaires never pay tax, and they're never going to, because they can afford to game the system just like massive corporations can. So is her plan detailed enough that it will create a systematic change to finally close these loops?
It's a great question, and historically, you're absolutely right. And we have allowed wealth to go essentially untaxed. And the plan, the answer to your question is you get the tax avoidance that you plan for. I do think the plan is detailed enough to really change the flaws in the system that you just articulated, but it won't happen unless Congress decides to do so. We definitely have the mechanisms to tax wealth. Maybe not exactly the way she said, by the way. There's a lot of other options to do that, but it won't happen if we don't fund the IRS, for example. We're leaving tons of revenue on the table by just underfunding the IRS. We're auditing, about a third of the cases that we used to do for millionaires. So we're actually going in the wrong direction. We could do so, but we'd have to decide to make a solid effort.
Megan?
Look, first of all, I think the idea that we can raise huge amounts of revenue through a wealth tax is pretty sketchy, as is the idea that Warren's idea that we're going to raise a ton of money by cracking down on tax avoidance. Look, I think that it is a good idea for the IRS to have the resources to collect the taxes that it's owed. But if you look at the Congressional Budget Office, they're estimating that perhaps a third of the money that Warren is counting on can be raised. And similarly with wealth taxes, Warren's estimates are a huge outlier compared to what most reputable economists think you could actually raise from this, because in fact, where most of the money is in the economy? It's in the upper middle class. And if you look actually even at arguments about mobility, if you look at Raj Chetty from Harvard, who's done this wonderful, huge, massive panel data study on the problems of intergenerational mobility, what actually matters is not the distance between the 1% and the rest, it's the distance between the top 25%. And those are the people that Elizabeth Warren is in fact running to, is trying to benefit the most with her plans. Those are actually the people who matter the most in terms of giving opportunity to people at the bottom.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.